So let's talk about metabolism and ATP. There's a couple of syllabus objectives. The first one is really just to differentiate between catabolism and anabolism. And the next one is about explaining how ATP allows energy from catabolic reactions to be used in anabolic reactions. So let's have a look at that. First of all, metabolism is all of the chemical reactions that occur within a living thing. And we can break those up basically into two types. Catabolic reactions are breaking down reactions, taking complex molecules and making them simpler. And that releases energy. A great example of that is digestion. And another one is cellular respiration. Anabolism is the synthesis of complex molecules from simple ones. So photosynthesis, for example, it requires energy. Photosynthesis has energy from the sun. And then it actually stores more energy as well. So it builds larger, more complex molecules. Protein synthesis is another example. So how does that fit in with ATP then? Well, ATP is adenosine triphosphate. So it's an adenine with a ribose sugar. You don't need to know that, but what is important here is that it's got 3 phosphate groups. And it's the universal energy carrier for organisms. So what do we mean then by energy? Well, energy is the potential to do work or produce change. And so many of the metabolic processes in an organism actually require energy, and they use energy in the form of ATP. So energy is actually stored in the bond between the second and third phosphate. So adenosine triphosphate is the high energy state, and it's this bond here between the second and third phosphates that actually stores the energy. So then we've got ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, where that third phosphate has been removed, and this is our low energy state. But they can be resynthesized by adding an inorganic phosphate to it, and that's what we're going to talk about next. We've got an ADP-ATP cycle. So, we can start anywhere with this process, really. But let's say we've got fully charged ATP, we've got the 3 phosphates, we've got all of this energy in this third phosphate. It's ready to do work. And in the cell, reactions that require energy, maybe it's active transport, for example, that last phosphate is broken off and the energy is released, and that energy then is able to be used for anabolic reactions within the cell. So protein synthesis, DNA synthesis, all of these sorts of reactions that require energy to build molecules requires energy, and that energy is from ATP. So then you have an ADP at the end of that process, and it's a low energy state, so it needs to be recharged or recycled back to ATP again. And it does that through cellular respiration. And this time it's a catabolic reaction, because we're actually breaking down the energy from food, glucose if you like, to reform that ATP. And so then we have ATP again in the high energy state, ready to do work, ready to do work in anabolic reactions within the cell. And it just continually cycles like that. So the cells don't have to go to the trouble of making ATP from scratch every time. All they need to do is just add this inorganic phosphate group and put it back to their high energy level. So if we go back and have a look at that syllabus objective, explain how ATP allows energy from catabolic reactions to be used in anabolic reactions. Well, ATP is recharged through the catabolic reaction of cellular respiration, so that it's in that high energy state, which can be used to provide the energy to do the work for anabolic reactions. And then, of course, it cycles back and is recharged through cellular respiration again. Another nice way that we could look at summarizing this is the food that we eat. It has energy in it in terms of glucose, etc. It also has the building blocks we need for making other macromolecules. So it's got amino acids, and it's got nitrogen, and all of these other building blocks that we need to make our macromolecules. So the catabolic reactions involve digestion, so breaking up the food that we eat into the building blocks of the amino acids, etc. But also it's that process of cellular respiration to recharge the ATP so that energy can be used in anabolic pathways to rebuild or to make the macromolecules that the body needs, proteins, lipids, DNA, etc. And ultimately, one of the byproducts of cellular respiration is the production of heat.